I really feel that in the fall, the fishing is either feast or famine. But regardless, in the fall, we have cooling water temperatures. And as the water starts to get cold, it really presents an opportunity that we have as anglers to go out and catch some of the biggest bass of the year, whether you fish in lakes, rivers, or ponds. And in today's video, I want to give you 3 patterns that you can use to attack the body of water that you're fishing to catch some of those big bass. So stay tuned, it's gonna be a good one. This video is brought to you by sportsmansoutfitters.com. Something that I truly love about Sportsman's Outfitters is it is run and owned by guys who are also sportsmen. These are guys who are fishermen. These are guys that are hunters. And not only can you get all your rods and reels and lures and tackle at Sportsman's, but you can get a lot of your hunting stuff as well. A lot of you guys ask how you can support this channel and keep videos like this coming to you. And the best way to do that is simply by clicking on those links down below in the description and shopping at Sportsman's Outfitters today. I have said this on other videos as well, but I truly used to hate fall bass fishing. It confused me. I would go out sometimes and catch them, and other times I just would not get a single bite. But over the years of fishing in a lot of different bodies of water, there are a few patterns that I have learned that not only hold true a lot of times in the fall, but they are also big fish patterns. And now it's really every fall that comes around, I truly can't wait to get out there and fish, because you can catch some of the biggest bass, like I talked about, in the body of water that you're fishing. So the first pattern is one that is one of my favorites, and I feel like I say that about everything, but this is truly one of my favorite ways to go out and catch bass. But this is by throwing a spinnerbait. And more specifically, I want to talk about the locations to fish a spinnerbait during the fall. Now, a lot of times in the fall, you are going to have a population of bigger shad that move up into small pockets, especially in dirty water areas. Now, that is a really big key to the success of your spinnerbait fishing, is finding some off-color water, some dirty water. I'm not saying that you won't get bit in clear water, but I've definitely found that the best spinnerbait fishing is typically in that off-color or even pretty muddy water. Now, the big thing that I look for is simply bait fish. And a lot of times I have found that you will get into these small creeks, these small pockets, and you will literally see bait on your fish finder suspended off the bottom. Now, anytime that I see this bait fish that is suspended off the bottom, that is when I'm going to pick up that spinnerbait and start catching some big bass. Now, with that being said, this is a very target-oriented way of catching fish. Anything that I can visibly see with my eyes that I think a bass could be relating to, that's what I'm going to be throwing my spinnerbait next to. A lot of times, this is some sort of wood cover. It could be a wood laydown. This could be tree stumps of some sort, even standing timber. This could also be other types of cover like docks or rock or even vegetation like lily pads. But again, this is visible cover that I can see. So you don't always necessarily need electronics to kind of put you in the right area. A lot of times when you're in the right area, you can see your targets, and a lot of times you're going to be able to see the bait fish kind of coming up, pecking on things at the surface. And that is that is when I am going to pick up that spinnerbait and catch fish. Now, a lot of times this happens the best for me when that water temperature starts to get like below 60 degrees. If you hit that 60-degree mark, anything from like 60 to the upper 40s, that seems to be the prime temperature for this fall time spinnerbait bite. Now, the trick to this bite is really being able to place your bait close to cover. A lot of times you want to hit the cover that you think bass are going to be on. And so in that case, a lot of times I'm not going to use a trailer hook. I'm going to thread on some sort of trailer like a Zoom Fat Albert and I'm going to hit it up against the wood. I'm going to hit it up against a dock piling. And a lot of times when you hit that bait and you kind of pop it off that cover, that is when the bass is going to get it. And I'm telling you what, just hold on, because like I said, this is a big bass technique. There are days where you can go out there and catch a lot of them, but this is a technique that you might not always get a lot of bites, but they are going to be the bigger ones in the body of water that you're fishing. I throw a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait. Usually it is a Covert series spinnerbait by Booyah. It's the one that was designed by Jason Christie. And I actually like a spinnerbait that has a bigger willow on the top. Usually the size is like a 4.5 with a Colorado blade on the bottom. This spinnerbait to me is very versatile. I can use it in stained water, muddy water, and it catches a lot of big bass. Now, the second pattern that I absolutely love, and again, it's one of the best ones to catch some really big bass, is by fishing creek channel swing banks with a jig. And this is actually something that's really simple to do, but really it's all about finding the right stretches. A lot of times, on some of your main reservoirs, you're gonna have some really big creeks, and those creek arms are going to have a small creek that runs through them. And anywhere that creek actually meets right up against the bank, that is a creek channel swing bank. It's very deep water, close to the bank. A lot of times you may be sitting, just off of this bank, maybe 50 foot off the bank, and you are sitting in 30, 40, 50 foot of water, in relatively deep water for the lake that you are fishing. And again, this is a very simple technique. I'm going to cast my jig up into shallow water, and I'm going to kind of stair step it down that steep bank. Now, I really like the Strike King structure jig, typically in the 1/2 ounce size, when I am fishing this way, because that structure jig, to me, it just comes through everything. It comes through rock, it comes through brush, it comes through all types of cover. And that is what you're going to find on these creek channel swing banks, is a little bit of everything. A lot of times you're gonna find some really big laydowns that have fallen down and have sunk into the water. And so you want a jig that can come through that cover, because that is typically where those bass are going to be. It seems like to me that some bass will move into these creek arms, but when they are kind of coming out of those creeks, they really relate to those creek channel swing banks. This is why I typically fish this pattern later in the fall. And I've done this all the way to the water temperature is like in the low 40-degree range before, like getting into wintertime fishing. Now, the colder the water is, the lighter the jig that you want to go with. Now, let me say that again, because that's really, really important. The colder the water is, the lighter the jig you want to go with. In that cold water, those bass don't want a jig that falls and moves a lot. So that 1/2 ounce bait that was catching bass for you is no longer going to catch them. You have to start stepping down, maybe to a 3/8, maybe even lighter, to a 1/4 ounce bait. Those slow falling baits, especially if you put them on a lighter pound test, are going to get you a lot more bites when you are fishing these creek channel swing banks in cold water. Again though, you want to make sure there is bait in the area. It doesn't have to be necessarily loaded up with bait. They're just, if you pull into an area and you see a couple of bait balls, maybe at the surface, maybe on your units, that's typically how you know, hey, there's probably some bass around here, and just work those creek channel swing banks really, really slow. Now, again, the big thing here is that you are going to find sections of these creek channel swings where most of the bass are, because some of these creek channel swings may go on for miles and miles, but there might be a little spot where there's kind of a point, a little creek channel swing point. That might be where those bass are. So just pay attention, kind of fish fast until you get into those areas where you get one bite, and then really slow down, because there might be a whole school on a creek channel swing. It's a great way to catch bass, especially big bass, late fall. Now, the third way to catch big bass during the fall is something that I utilize throughout the entire fall period, from the start of fall all the way to the end. But it's also one of the more confusing patterns, because it's actually not really a pattern. It's actually more of just a lure. And that lure consists of a whopper plopper style bait, a whopper plopper or choppo, or a buzz bait. Okay, now I typically do this on clearer bodies of water. And what you're going to do is simply fish the bank, fish everything. Fish from the main lake points all the way to the back, out, back, out, back. You're gonna fish literally everything. And you are going to catch fish at times near docks or by a rock pile or a riprap bank or on a stump or next to, it's literally just fishing a topwater, especially the plopper or buzzbait style baits. Now, the reason that this works during the fall is because you have bass that are eating bait fish, but those bait fish are everywhere, especially like during the beginning parts of fall. You're going to have bait fish that's on the main lake, bait fish that's in the back of pockets, bait fish that's everywhere in between. And because of that, the bass can be everywhere, literally everywhere. They will be all over the place. So there's no rhyme or reason to this besides the lure that you are fishing. Because I fish primarily cleaner water lakes or lightly stained lakes this way, I like to use the whopper plopper anytime I have really rough conditions. You know, if I get out there and there's a pretty good chop on the water, or I have really cloudy skies, it's raining, it's nasty, that is when I pick up that whopper plopper, because obviously if you fish the whopper plopper, it makes a lot of noise. It's plop, 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 plop. It makes a lot of noise. It can help fish to just find it during the fall. Now, if I have calm conditions or even sunny conditions, that is when I'm going to pick up the buzz bait, because the buzz bait is a lot more quiet of a lure. Now, the big thing that I have noticed about fishing these two topwaters throughout the fall is that the later into fall that you get, the colder that water gets, the slower you want to bring that bait. That's a really, really critical tip. Kind of like the jig tip that I talked about with the size of your jig. It's the same thing. At the beginning of fall, the fish are a lot more active. They're willing to hit a bait that is really coming fast. But as you get into that really cold water, low 50s, even upper 40s, you can still catch fish on I've caught fish on a buzzbait in 47, 48 degree water temperatures. But you have to creep that bait just barely across the surface. So again, that's a little bit more of a confusing pattern, but the bites that you get fishing that way are the right bites. Like if you fish tournaments, you can win tournaments by simply covering water all over the place, never fishing the same stretch more than once, and catching big bass here and there. So another thing that happens in the fall, something that I really didn't discuss in this video, is the fall turnover. And it's really important that you understand the fall turnover. And if you want to know more about it, I'm going to leave a video to it right here where I discuss exactly what the fall turnover is. So comment below, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.